Hi everybody, it's Claudia from Create with Claudia, and today we're doing some freeform improv placemats, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about this quilt behind me on the wall. So I'm back and I'm here to show off my May of 2022 Island Batik Ambassador project. We were asked to create something with triangles, so I was thinking, what should I do? There's so many things you can do with triangles, so I actually came up with my own block. Let me show you right here. I came up with a paper piece block. It's really easy to do. It's a lot of fun, and I'm actually going to put that out on my Etsy shop here in a little while. But I wanted to show you the quilt I made with it, and this was the piece I made. I'm actually hanging it horizontally right now. Normally I would hang it vertically, but this way you can see the whole thing. For this challenge, I used the following Island Batik fabrics. For the black, larger sections, I used their solid blacks. And if you have never used Island Batik solids, they are wonderful. They're just a wonderful hand. They sew really nicely. I love them. I can't say enough good things about them. And then for the other parts of it, with all the patterns and things like that, I used a lot of scraps for all the bright colors, like the pinks and the blues and things like that. For all of the black and whites, this is one of their new collections. It's called Graphics. It was designed by Kathy Engel for Carl and Linda Sullivan of Colorworks. And if you know their work, you know that they do a lot of sort of gorgeous bright colors and a lot of black and whites. And I just thought that those strips, I actually had strip set of it, 2.5 inch strips. And that's what this is all made of, except for the larger black part. For the batting, I used Hobbs Batting all natural cotton. I love that batting. It's a really nice thin batting, which I like. Perfect for this wall hanging. It just made it has a nice drape to it, which is really what I was looking for with this piece. To machine quilted, I machine quilted it on my Janome, and I used Aurifil thread. I used a gray and a black, depending on what sections, and I just sort of followed the lines of the triangles. For the needle in my machine, I used Schmetz Needles, and all of those were provided in our first Island Batik Ambassador box. So thank you so much to Island Batik, Hobbs Batting, Aurifil Thread, and Schmetz Needles. So today what I wanted to do is I just want to do a little freeform or some improv. Very easy. I'm going to just do a placemat with you, and I'll show you how to make it with all of the leftover strips that I had. I had a lot of leftover strips from this, and if you notice, I actually used a lot of them for my binding. I love scrappy bindings. And so I used a lot of them for that, but I still, even after that, had some 2.5 inch strips from that strip set of graphics. And I'm going to show you today how to make a really easy and really fun improv placemat. So before I get started on my easy freeform improv placemat, it's a long name for just a really simple placemat, I just want to show you really quickly again this really fun and easy triangle paper piece quilt block that I used to make my quilt out of. Very easy to do, and I honestly, I'm going to be drafting up a pattern in the next few weeks for this to sell on my Etsy shop. And I also used the same template to get the black sections of that quilt, and I'll just pop it up on the screen really quickly. You can see the big thick black sections. Those are also all done with this triangle template. So I can't wait for that to come out, and you can mix and match. You can do whatever there's so many options with this. It's a really fun and easy paper piece. It's a block to do. It's a great introduction to paper piecing because it is so easy. So, but let's get started on this placemat. So I normally like my placemats to measure about 12 by 18, which makes it really nice and easy. And here are a whole bunch of those strips I have left over from that graphics, Island Batik graphics line, from that strip set that I got. All different lengths. Like I said, I used a lot of them up in my binding, and I even have some binding. I'm just going to show you some of these gorgeous patterns. Look at those gorgeous graphic lines. There's circles, there's swirls, there some squares here. Let me show you this. This is actually some of the binding that's left over. Here's some in black. You can there's a little bit of thread on there. I'm going to trim these down. I really like this one too, this sort of one with lots of squares in it. There's just so many different patterns in this line. It's really a lot of fun to use. And so what I'm going to do, like I said, my placemats, I like them to measure 12 by 18. And I'm just going to start sewing. I'm going to need 6 strips. They all measure 12.5 inches. Like I said, it's a strip set. And then I had a lot of scraps. I raided my scrap bin, and I just pulled out some pieces that I liked, some bright colors. Let's see. Here we go. Put this away. just some fun ones. And these were, I made it really easy. These were already cut 2.5 inches. So, I mean, this is about as easy as it gets. And if you need a quick placemats or even a table runner, you can do this. So I'm just going to get ready and then we're going to start piecing this together. Alrighty, so here are all my strips, and you'll notice I didn't chop apart my binding. I figured I'm just going to cut it because I like that sort of diagonal line there, so I'm going to keep those whole, and you're going to need 6 strips total that are 18.5 inches long. Very simple to do. And if you have long enough strips, 2.5-inch strips, well, then you can just make 6 strips. I mean, that would be the ultimate of easy, but we're going to play a little bit, have some fun coloring. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off a little piece of this binding that I have left. I already trimmed off the edge here, and I'm just going to make it, let's see, I'm just going to line it up. This is the nice thing about those 2.5-inch strips, is they're ready-made for you. So let's see, and I'm not going to measure these exactly as I'm doing this. I'll measure at the very end once they're all sewn together. So it might not look exactly like 12 inches by 18 inches, but it'll be close. So I'm just going to measure this. This is 15 inches long. Oh, well, that's perfect. So 15 inches. So I need 3 more inches. Let's see, what should I put on there? What do you think? I need 3 inches. Maybe I'll put this pretty blue. Let's see. I don't know how long this is. That actually ought to do it. So I'm just going to add the blue to the end. Just sew it to one end. And I use a 1/4-inch seam allowance. All right, so here's my first strip. You can see I moved my camera just a little bit so you can see it better when I'm sewing. I'm just going to double check the measure. You want it at least 18.5 inches long. And I'm just using my cutting mat here to eyeball it. I'm not exact by any stretch of the imagination, and that is actually right at 18.5 inches long. So there's your one strip. So there's one strip already done. So let's see. Next I think I'm going to do a white strip. Let's see how long this one is. This is about 14.5 inches long. But I sort of want to divide it up a little bit. So I'm actually going to cut this down. I don't know. Let's see. We can do, let's see, 10 inches. I like this white. It's a really pretty white. It has a little bit, you probably can't, well, maybe you can see it on the camera. It has a little bit of a design in it too. And we are going to pop this with orange. How's that? I feel like some orange today. So I'm going to sew that down using that 1/4-inch. And let's see, on the other end, I definitely don't want more white. Let's see, maybe one of these. These are fun. This one's kind of fun. I'm just going to add this strip to the end, making sure I put right sides together. And this one's definitely going to be a little long, so we'll trim it up a little bit. The beauty of this project is you don't have to trim it up too much until the very end. You're just going to sew these strips together, and it's kind of liberating. It's like you're coloring with crayons. You're just having a fun time sewing some fabric together. All right. So here we go. Now, like I said, this one is really long. I'm actually just going to trim it a little bit. I'm not even going to use a ruler. Just going to carefully trim it. Watch your fingers. Always close that up. I'll keep that for later. You know, I never throw away a scrap of fabric. So there's another strip. So there's 2 strips. Now you can see, let me just move these a little bit. They're definitely not even yet. You're going to even those out when you're done sewing the whole thing together. So next up, we're going to do one more, and actually what I'm going to do then is fast forward the camera because I don't need to explain it all to you. Bottom line is you need 6 strips, 2.5 inches wide, and more 18.5 inches or longer. I make them a little bit longer so I can just sort of adjust and play a little bit. And once you're done with that, you'll sew the strips together, and I'll stop there and talk to you a little bit about that too. So enjoy while I make some more strips of pretty colored fabric. Alrighty, so these have been pressed and sewn together, and I got 6 of them. Let's see how they look. I'm just going to play now. Now's the real fun part. You can just play and color them and see how they're going to come together. Let's see, put some color down there. I'm going to move them, let's see which way. This way so you can see them a little bit. There we go. We're just... It's like you're a kid again. I love doing improv sewing sometimes. Sometimes when you're stuck on an idea and you aren't quite sure what to do, it's fun to just sew. At least that to me it is. Maybe not to everybody else, but to me it is. So here we go. This is just a temporary one. It's not going to look like this, of course, when it's done, but it's a little bit. It's definitely much not a little bit. It's a lot bigger than you want it to be. I may switch this one around. Let's see. What do you guys think? Move it up a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. Let's see. I think I might be happy with that. I sort of don't want these two together. I might move this guy down here. There we go. And that way, I didn't want any of the colors, the bright, the black and whites are fine to touch. I sort of, in my head, I didn't want the colors to touch. This one doesn't even have a color in it. So I think I like that. So now what you're going to do is you're just going to start sewing the strips together. Now one of these strips was pretty close to 18.5 inches. I think it was this one. So I'm actually, as my rule of thumb, going to line up these others along that edge, or try to. I'm going to be real careful with that because you don't want it to be too short. But basically what you're going to do next is you're going to sew the rows together, these two together, sticking to my shirt, these two together, and then these two together, and then sew those sections together. And you know, this has been taking me all of like, I don't know, maybe half an hour to get this all set up and sewn together. You could make a set of 4 of these in no time. But let me go ahead and do the strips first. I will probably pin just so I keep a nice straight edge. Alrighty, so here we go. It's coming together. Can't remember exactly. I should have marked out how I laid them out. I think it was like this. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how it was. So now we're going to keep sewing. We're going to sew these sections together. I did pull this over. Let me just show you this. I made this a little uneven just because I didn't want the pink at the very end. This is what I felt like. So I'm actually going to try and line up this section with this edge right here. Does that make sense? Let me move this over just a little bit. So I'm going to, when I sew these two together, I'm going to line this section up with this blue edge right here. And then I'll add this one to that blue edge as well. So here we go. Alrighty, so here's my placemat. It's almost done, my sort of improv freeform placemat, just having some fun with some colors and scraps. First thing I'm going to do is line up. You need to cut it now 18.5 inches long, 12.5 inches wide. So I'm going to use my nice long ruler, and I'm going to line this up as best as I can along this edge. And I'm going to try and get, let me move my ruler, that would have helped. I'm going to try and get these lines as straight as I can so they're nice and straight along the length of it as well. And sometimes that's a little tricky. I don't know, one of my things, I've mentioned this in other videos, sewing really long seams is kind of one of my nemesises. I don't know what the plural is of that word. They never come out quite straight like I wish they would, but it's close enough. So we're just going to leave it like this. And now, basically, we're just squaring this up. We're just going to trim this edge. And I apologize, my chair broke and I have another one from the house and it squeaks a lot. I got to get my husband to fix that. So you're just going to line that up, toss that or keep it, and then you're just going to bring your ruler down to 18, let's see. It's kind of hard. My mat isn't quite where I want it to be. Let me see where I wanted this to be. You want 18.5 inches long, so right about There we go. So it's about 16. I'm sorry, I'm talking to myself. Which I do a lot when I'm sewing. But anyway, so I'm just going to double check. Always double check your measurements. See, it's a little bit short there. Oh well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 18 and a half. I'm going to actually bring it back to 18 and a quarter. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just don't want that little edge there. So we're going to line it up right there on that edge. So I have it, I think it's now about 18 and a quarter. There we go. Okay. And it's still lined up along here. And now we're going to trim. The beauty of this freeform project is it does not have to be perfect at all. That is it's no fuss, no muss. You don't have to worry about any seams or anything. That's what's so much fun about it. It's very relaxing. And then it should be 12 and a half across like that. And it is. Just going to measure it, measure. I'm going to trim. I have to trim it just a wee bit on the one side. Let's see. Just want to make sure. I want to trim up this edge a little bit. I'm going to trim up this side only because it's just a little wonky. And I like to have really nice rectangular placemats. All right. I think my ruler slipped there a little bit. Oh well, it's fine. All right, I closed up my rotary cutter. Here we go. This is what my placemat's going to look like. No two will be alike, which is really nice. It'll be fun. Each guest can get something else, or you can change them up every night. It's lots of fun, and it doesn't have to be black and whites and bright, bold accent colors. You could do pastels or anything like that. It's just a great way to use up some of those leftover 2.5-inch strips, because I know we all have them. We buy those gorgeous strip sets, and then you know, we always inevitably have a few left over if we're lucky. Because I'm a scrap quilter, maybe you don't want any left over. I do like having them left over. I also love keeping them for binding as well. So the next thing I'm going to do is quilt this, and I'm just going to very easily and very quickly going to quilt this along, quilt in the ditch along these seams. And let me just show you how I do that really quickly. Let me show you my backing. Okay, so here I just pieced together some stuff from my scrap. I have a big box of Island Batik scraps. Aren't they pretty? Like this sort of beige with some pale like gray, and then this dark blue. Ooh, and look at that orange. Now I'm sort of regretting putting this on the back of my placemat, but I still have plenty left over. No, not to worry. The other thing I have things left over from various projects is one of the things Hobbs Batting gave us was some fusible batting, and for this is perfect. I do not like basting, and so this fusible batting will be perfect for this small project. And then here again is my my placemat. Just going to sort of try and center it as best as I can. It should be good to go. This is pretty easy centering here. And then I'm going to take it over to my pressing surface and fuse this all together, because that is that fusible batting from Hobbs. And then I'm just going to very quickly quilt down the line, and I'm not going to do a lot of it. I don't want to take a whole lot of time. And then what I did is, with the even more strips that I had left over, I made my 2.5-inch binding. The way I do binding is 2.5-inch strips, and then I fold them in half, wrong sides together, and then I will sew it, and I'll show you that. I'm going to sew that on the front. And I just use this fun, scrappy leftover strips. So all right, so it's fused together. See how it doesn't really fall apart. Ta-da-da-da. I'm gonna shake it a little bit. Awesome, I love that fusible batting, especially for projects like this. So now I'm just gonna take it over to my machine and quilt it really quickly, and then show you how I trim it up and bind it. All right, that is it. So now I'm going to trim away all this excess, and then we're going to put the binding on. Alrighty, so here we go. Here is my very easy freeform, improv, whatever you want to call it, just playing with crayons placemat. You can make a whole set of these. Wouldn't these look great, especially if you have a more modern decor? Now, again, This is all about fabric choice. If you had some really pretty florals, wouldn't this be pretty, and like pastels and things like that? I mean, the sky is the limit with any kind of quilting, but especially with something like this Freeform. And I also love that I put in some of that binding, those little angles there, just add a little interest to it. So now I'm going to bind, and again, I think I mentioned it before, I use 2.5 inch strips and I fold them in half. I love to bind like this. And then I will sew it to the front. I then flip it over and hand stitch it on the back. I love hand stitching binding. Alright, so like I said, what I'll do later, I'm not going to do it right now, is flip this over and just hand stitch it to the back. So I'm going to flip that over, but I'm going to adjust the camera one more time and give you one more look at that pretty quilt with that gorgeous Island Batik fabric. Alrighty, so here it is. Here it is all finished except for the binding. I am going to tack that back and sew it tonight. My fun little Freeform Improv placemat that you can make with leftover 2.5 inch strips. Just go ahead, have some fun, play, just like you're a kid again with your crayon box. And I also want to thank Island Batik. This is my May project, and it's all about triangles. And I want to thank them for the fabric. That was the graphics line, and I have it down on the screen. It was designed by Kathy Engel for Carl and Linda Sullivan of Colorworks. And then I used their solid black for this section. And the triangles were all paper pieced. This was a really fun project. I definitely am going to do some more triangle quilts. It's just a little different for me, so I had a lot of fun doing it. I also want to thank Hobbs Batting for the cotton batting that I used in the quilt, Aurifil Thread for all of the thread I used, and Schmetz Needles, which are always in my machine. Thank you so much. I'd love it if you'd hit that subscribe button. I always appreciate new subscribers. Thank you so much. I do all kinds of videos, tips, tutorials, all kinds of things, lots of free patterns. I love doing that sort of thing. So check it out, and if you hit that bell, you'll always get notified when I do a new video. I'm also on social media where I post projects all the time too. So thank you so much for stopping by. Here once again is my easy, fun, free-form, no-brainer placemat. I hope you make it. And you can make this any size, do a table runner, wall hanging, whatever you want to do. It's just lots of fun and very easy. So thank you so much for stopping by, and have a great day.